SVG needed to run at least top 20, maybe top 15 tonight, but they just missed it, flat out missed it, unfortunately. Rough night for SVG, gives up.
Shane van Gisbergen dominated road courses all season, but Darlington delivered a brutal reality check. His car was unraceable. His frustration poured over the radio, and yet he still clawed back, only to watch it all collapse again when it mattered most. What went wrong? And how does this shape his playoff hopes? Let's break it down. SVG entered the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series playoffs tied with Denny Hamlin for the most regular season wins, 4 apiece. That placed him 6th in the standings and branded him as a surprise star in his rookie campaign. But there was always a catch. While he dominates road and street circuits, ovals remain his steepest hill to climb. His road course average sits around 8th place, but on ovals he often drifts to the middle or back of the pack. Darlington Raceway, however, seemed like his best opening round chance. On August 31st, 2025, the 1.366-mile oval, nicknamed Too Tough to Tame, demands precision and grit. SVG embraced the challenge. He still remembered his Xfinity debut there in 2024, when rain wiped out practice and he had to jump straight into the race, finishing 15th with no preparation. It was a track that both punished and intrigued him. He came in with a 22-point playoff cushion, not a huge margin, but enough to give him breathing room. At least that's what many thought. The 4 wins that carried him here were all on road courses: Mexico City, Chicago, Sonoma, and Watkins Glen. Those victories showcased his natural car control, late-breaking skill, and ability to adapt. It also gave Trackhouse Racing valuable playoff points. But NASCAR's postseason is built on variety. Superspeedways, short ovals, intermediates all demand a different style. Consistency matters just as much as flashes of brilliance. For SVG, that balance remains the missing piece. Midway through Stage 2, SVG's confidence unraveled. Over the radio, his voice was sharp with anger. "This car is unraceable. This is embarrassing. I can't turn. There's no drive. It's just not even close." It was a raw, unfiltered moment. The number 88 machine that had carried him into the postseason now looked helpless against the Lady in Black. Trackhouse engineers tried to calm him, promising the car would improve once the race ran deeper into night. His frustrated reply, "Yeah, I fucking hope so. Sorry for the language." The truth was clear. He was fighting the track, the car, and his own expectations. For a while, SVG looked doomed. He slipped a lap down, stuck in traffic, his playoff hopes sinking with every turn. But then came a lifeline, the free pass. Suddenly back on the lead lap, he started carving through the Then, with around 85 laps left, the transformation was striking. The same car that felt hopeless earlier now surged forward. SVG climbed into the top 10 and briefly ran as high as 3rd. It was the kind of rebound that reminded everyone why his rookie season had captured so much attention. Over the radio, his tone softened. "That's what we needed. Thanks for getting me through that." But Darlington is relentless. Tire wear, heavy traffic, and long green flag runs punished SVG again. Late in Stage 3, his car faded badly, dropping 2 laps down. By the checkered flag, he finished back in 32nd place. What had been a potential comeback story turned into a nightmare finish. For SVG, the result was costly. Instead of building his playoff advantage, he left South Carolina barely above the cut line, 12th in the standings, just a handful of points from elimination. Meanwhile, Chase Briscoe's dominant win locked him into the round of 12. SVG's night ended with questions instead of momentum. The playoff schedule doesn't give SVG any favors. Next up is Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway, a flat braking heavy oval where he has never competed. Unlike road courses, Gateway requires patience through long corners and precision throttle control. For a rookie, it's a daunting assignment. Then comes Bristol Motor Speedway on September 13th. The half-mile coliseum is chaos in motion. Cars bump and slam every lap, crashes erupt without warning, and tempers boil over. For a driver still finding his rhythm on ovals, Bristol is as dangerous as it gets. If SVG survives those 2 battlegrounds, his reward will be Charlotte's Roval, his best shot to shine in the round of 12. But that's only if he gets there. Many analysts warned this scenario could unfold. Entering with 22 playoff points helped, but it wasn't a safety net big enough to erase oval struggles. TobyChristie.com projected SVG might sneak into the round of 12, but advancing deeper would require a flawless Roval run and solid oval results. Some optimistic voices suggested he could reach the round of 8, but only if he avoided trouble at Gateway and Bristol. Few were convinced. Auto Week captured the bigger picture. This playoff field is unpredictable. Hamlin and Elliott may be frontrunners, yet no one is untouchable. SVG embodies that chaos, capable of brilliance, but vulnerable to collapse. Former champions echoed a theme. His supercar's background makes him aggressive, even fearless, but ovals demand rhythm, tire saving, and pit cycle strategy. Darlington proved that road course brilliance alone won't carry him. The Cup playoffs demand strength everywhere. SVG's style thrives on braking zones, sliding exits, and technical layouts. That's why road courses look easy for him. On ovals, though, every lap is about subtlety, conserving tires, handling dirty air, and staying patient. His 4 road course wins were spectacular, but average oval results often linger in the teens or worse. On superspeedways and short tracks, he has often struggled to stay competitive, with finishes sliding well outside the top 20. That gap explains his fragile playoff path. Still, SVG has shown adaptability before. His 2024 Darlington Xfinity race, where he finished 15th without any practice, proved he can adjust quickly. But Cup racing is longer, deeper, and less forgiving. The challenge is simple. The postseason leans heavily on ovals. 7 of the final 10 tracks fall into that category. Unless he finds consistency, his playoff run could end before he reaches his strongest event, Charlotte's Roval. If there was one positive from Darlington, it was SVG's resilience. After falling a lap down, he refused to quit. Using every adjustment his team made, he clawed forward, even reaching 3rd place before his car gave up again. That grit earned respect. His angry radio outbursts showed raw emotion, but his later gratitude showed maturity. Fans saw both the frustration of a rookie still learning ovals and the fire of a competitor unwilling to fold. SVG himself admits the balance. Strength is my team, the weakness is me. His humility has only made his rise more compelling. Road courses may play to instinct, but ovals demand patience. Each lap is another lesson, and every lesson brings him closer to closing the gap. SVG's Darlington result left him with no margin for error. Gateway is unknown territory. Bristol is a very risky track. If he falters in either, elimination becomes likely. But if he holds on, the Roval offers redemption. Analysts believe he could win there, swinging momentum back in his favor and pushing him toward the round of 8. Fans now wait to see whether his road course mastery can keep him alive, or if oval inexperience could end his run early. Darlington was a wake-up call. Even a driver who looks unbeatable on road courses can be humbled by NASCAR's ovals. The question now is simple. Can Shane Van Gisbergen adapt fast enough to prove he's a real championship threat? Or will Gateway and Bristol cut his run short before the Roval even arrives? He's shown heart, speed, and flashes of brilliance. But the postseason is sudden death racing. One mistake, and it's over. What do you think? Can SVG fight through the oval proving ground, or will the round of 12 mark the end of his playoff dream? Everything was normal. Then suddenly a car slammed into the wall. It was quick, scary, and happened right before the playoffs.
You see the 19? Oh! What a save! Oh, no!
What a hard hit for the 19.
Fans were shocked. Big names got involved. People started picking sides. What came next changed things in NASCAR in a big way. It started as just another hard-fought NASCAR race at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But by the time the checkered flag waved, Austin Hill had gone from playoff hopeful to the center of one of the most talked-about controversies of the season. And Dale Earnhardt Jr.? He wasn't buying the excuses.
NASCAR suspends Austin Hill for intentionally wrecking Eric Almirola, a decision that will have a huge impact on this year's playoff.
The wreck itself was jarring. On lap 91 of the Xfinity Series Pennzoil 250, Austin Hill appeared to hook Eric Almirola in the right rear, sending him straight into the turn 4 wall. It wasn't just a bump or a squeeze. It was the kind of contact that stops hearts and raises eyebrows. Hill was immediately hit with a 5-lap penalty during the race. He'd end up finishing 34th, just ahead of Almirola in 35th, whose day was done after that violent crash. Initially, that seemed like the end of it. NASCAR had acted, and Hill had been punished, but just a few days later, the situation escalated. NASCAR came down harder, suspending Hill for one race and stripping him of all 21 of his playoff points. Though he was granted a waiver to remain playoff eligible, the message was clear. This wasn't going to be brushed off. That's when the real debate began. Austin Hill, for his part, didn't hesitate to defend himself. Standing in the garage at Watkins Glen, he doubled down on his innocence. According to Hill, what happened at Indianapolis was nothing more than a racing incident. Not only did he insist that he hadn't intentionally wrecked Almirola, he said he'd even shared SMT data with NASCAR to prove it. "I know that when I go to my grave," Hill said, "that it wasn't done on purpose." He wasn't angry, he claimed. He hadn't lost his cool. In fact, if he'd really wanted to retaliate, he said he would have done it somewhere else on the track, turn 1, for example, where he could have moved Almirola out of the groove without risking a violent crash. He believed the data would show it was a mistake, not a malicious move. But that explanation didn't sit right with everyone, least of all Dale Earnhardt Jr. Speaking on his podcast, Dale Jr. Download, Earnhardt Jr. didn't mince words. From his perspective, the incident wasn't just a misjudgment or bad luck. It was avoidable. It was dangerous. And yes, it looked intentional. This isn't a "hey, Austin Hill deserves to be parked, deserves another suspension." This is, though, "Hey, Austin, could you take it easy?"
This isn't the right hook. This isn't a "hey, Austin Hill deserves to be parked, deserves another suspension." This is, though.
He was just getting started. According to Earnhardt Jr., NASCAR's disciplinary system had long suffered from inconsistencies. Penalties often seemed to vary depending on the track, the drivers involved, or the severity of the result. But to him, the rule should be simple. If you right hook someone and cause a wreck like that, it doesn't matter where it happens or how fast you're going, you get suspended. Then came the kicker. Earnhardt Jr. made it clear he wasn't buying Hill's version of the story. On a later episode of his podcast, he put it bluntly. Even though he still says that he didn't do it intentionally at Indy, I don't buy it. I don't think anybody does.
This is not the same thing that happened at Indy. Even though he still says that he didn't do it intentionally at Indy, I don't buy it. I don't think anybody does.
That statement echoed through the NASCAR world. It wasn't just a difference of opinion, it was a public challenge to Hill's credibility from one of the sport's most respected voices. For fans and analysts alike, it was now more than just a racing incident. It was a question of truth, accountability, and whether NASCAR was prepared to hold its drivers to a consistent standard. Aric Almirola, the victim of the crash, didn't leave much to interpretation either. He called the incident violent. The implication was clear. This wasn't a mere racing deal, it felt like an attack. The controversy split fans and commentators right down the middle. On Reddit's r/NASCAR community, some fans sided with Hill. They pointed to his calm demeanor, his consistent story, and the data he said he'd submitted. One user even suggested Hill might have genuinely convinced himself it was unintentional, saying, "I honestly believe he has convinced himself it was unintentional. I feel like he mentally overwrote that part of his memory." Others weren't so forgiving. They viewed the move as reckless at best and malicious at worst. They echoed Earnhardt Jr.'s concerns about the precedent it would set if NASCAR didn't take incidents like this seriously. Interestingly, some media members also began to change their tune. A writer from Slicks and Sticks admitted to having second thoughts. Initially critical of Hill, he later said that after watching Hill's interviews and seeing how consistent he was in his defense, maybe the driver really didn't mean to do it. Maybe, just maybe, it was a mistake. But that's the problem with moments like these. Intent is nearly impossible to prove. Unless a driver admits it outright or the evidence is overwhelmingly clear, everything else becomes speculation. That's why Earnhardt Jr.'s comments mattered so much. He wasn't just guessing, he was making a judgment based on years of experience behind the wheel. He's been in those situations, seen those kinds of moves, and knows what goes through a driver's head in the heat of battle. So when he says he doesn't believe Hill, people listen. For NASCAR, this wasn't just about one wreck. It was about setting a precedent. The decision to suspend Hill and strip his playoff points was about more than just punishment, it was a signal to the rest of the field. Aggressive driving is one thing, but if it crosses the line into dangerous, retaliatory, or reckless territory, there will be consequences. Richard Childress Racing Hill's team chose not to appeal the decision. That, too, raised eyebrows. If they truly believed Hill had been wronged, why not fight it? Instead, they seemed to accept the punishment quietly. Still, the damage was done. Hill's playoff hopes took a massive hit. Even with the waiver, climbing back into contention would be an uphill battle. More importantly, his reputation took a hit, a mark that could stick far longer than any suspension. For Almirola, the consequences were physical and psychological. Wrecks like that stay with a driver. The violence of the crash, the shock of being turned head-on into the wall, and the lingering question of whether it was personal, all of it adds up. The NASCAR community will keep debating what really happened that day in Indianapolis. Fans will argue, drivers will take sides, and the media will keep digging. But one thing is certain, the conversation isn't going away anytime soon. And as long as drivers are willing to make bold moves and tempers continue to flare under pressure, the line between hard racing and dangerous retaliation will always be a little blurry. Whether Hill meant it or not, he's now part of a much bigger story, one that goes beyond one race or one wreck. It's about trust, judgment, and what kind of sport NASCAR wants to be. Dale Earnhardt Jr. made his stance clear. Now the rest of the NASCAR world has to decide where it stands too. If you want to see more wild moments like this and hear what drivers really think, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss what happens next.
Kyle Busch blocks in the 48. Kyle, right rear hanging out, which is legal. I would have loved if I was the 48 that he would have gone a little further in his box, but hey, Kyle Busch did everything he was allowed to do.
Maybe he feels like the 48 got too deep in his box and didn't allow him to get where he needed to get.
I don't know, but I'm going to keep an eye on this. Watch this as we come back.
What happens when a two-time NASCAR champion reaches his absolute breaking point? Kyle Busch just showed us at Iowa Speedway, and it wasn't pretty. The veteran driver unleashed an F-bomb-filled radio rant that had the entire NASCAR world talking. This wasn't just another heated moment. This was a complete meltdown years in the making. Kyle Busch's Iowa nightmare started before the race even began. Saturday's practice session looked promising. The 40-year-old was running second fastest in his group, pushing his Richard Childress Racing Chevrolet to find that extra 1/10 of a second. Then, disaster struck. Entering turn 1, Busch felt confident after a strong run through turns 3 and 4. Felt really good in 3 and 4 there, I throttled up, Busch explained after the crash. Car stuck well, and I'm like, okay, the right rear's good, let's go, and drove it off into 1 with a little bit more trust factor in it, and obviously it wasn't there. The number 8 Chevrolet got loose. Busch overcorrected. The car snapped sideways and slammed headfirst into the wall. Flames erupted from the front end as the primary car was destroyed beyond repair. Got a little bit loose and overcorrected and just smacked the fence, Busch said. The crash forced his team to work through the night preparing a backup car. For a driver sitting 81 points below the playoff cutoff line, this spelled disaster. Busch would start 37th, dead last in the field. The psychological impact was immediate. Busch admitted his trust in the RCR cars dropped to 0 after the wreck. I was probably built up to about 75-80% trust. Now I'm back to 0 again, he said. Sunday brought the Iowa Corn 350, and Busch faced an uphill battle from the rear. Starting 37th in a backup car would test every ounce of his championship experience. Stage 1 showed modest progress. Busch nursed the backup machine from 37th to 33rd position. Not spectacular, but survival mode was the priority. Stage 2 delivered the breakthrough. Busch clawed his way through traffic, showcasing why he's a 63-time Cup Series winner. Strategic calls from crew chief Randall Burnett put him in position to capitalize. When the checkered flag waved for Stage 2, Busch had climbed to 5th place, earning crucial stage points. The momentum felt real. The backup car was responding. Maybe this weekend from hell could be salvaged after all. Then came lap 169. Shane Van Gisbergen's spin-off turn 2 brought out the caution flag. Cars flooded pit road for service under yellow. Iowa Speedway's narrow pit road layout created immediate problems. Busch's pit box sat directly next to Alex Bowman's number. 48 Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolet. As multiple cars hit pit road simultaneously, traffic became a nightmare. Busch found himself trapped.